There you go.
Very good evening to you. It's Thursday night. It's just gone 6 p.m. And hey, many people will be saying Dennis and I are late, but we're actually over 24 hours early. You are tuned to the Friday night football pitch with me, Cammy McDonald, and him, Dennis Newell. Early podcast this week, just purely and simply because it's Easter holidays, it's holiday time, and people are going away on holiday tomorrow. Well, I'm going away on holiday tomorrow anyway. And the time we would normally have the flight, the show I'll be flying. So podcast this week is on Thursday night, as it tends to be if one of us is having a wee break. So Thursday night, tonight we're talking Champions League. We will be looking at the Europa League ties coming up tonight, obviously featuring Rangers, Manchester United and Spurs if you get British interest. And we'll pay a quick look at the domestic leagues as well this week. Short episode tonight. We promise it won't run for an hour and 20 minutes, as sometimes the podcasts do. So, without further ado, Dennis, how we doing? How's things?
I'm fine, Cammy, yourself?
Aye, not bad at all, not bad. Be good to get away over the weekend because Scottish weather's back to doing its usual stuff this week, pissing for the heavens or bright sunshine 1 minute. So, it is what it is. Do you get any plans for Easter weekend?
Just my usual. Have a game of golf on Sunday and that'll be it.
Nothing
exciting. Just waiting the good weather coming. We've had the decent weather anyway, so I can't complain too much.
I had a couple of days of summer last week.
Yeah, so I've got a wee break, a couple of days off. That's fine.
Yeah, good. Well, enjoy the Easter weekend.
You too. Where are you going?
Let's see. I'm off to Slovakia, so I'm going to do Slovakia. I'm then going to get the train or the bus to Vienna.
Brilliant.
45-minute bus or a train journey. Now, let's. I know you like your rants, so I'm going to have one on public transport in the UK because it's absolute shocking. It's vastly overpriced and it's not worth the money. I'm going, as I say, Saturday from Slovakia into a different country in the shape of going to Austria in the shape of Vienna, and it's costing me £6 on the bus. If I want to splash out, I can get the train, and that'll cost me £8.
Incredible.
Now, can you imagine what that journey would be in this country? You know what I mean? They try to say, let's encourage you to use public transport, save on greenhouse gases and all that kind of freaking nonsense. And then they charge you £173 to go to Aberdeen by train, as I would have been 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Nonsensical. So I'm going to a country where two of the best public transport systems in the world, or in Europe anyway.
Cammy, every corner you turn, I know we're going to speak about football, but every corner we've turned since the start of the year has been absolutely disgraceful with the public getting milked by from the day that the government get in and actually torch the pensioners £500 that they need to keep themselves warm is disgusting. Yep. And they've cheated their way in. It doesn't matter what government it is. They're all the same. But, you look at it, car road tax, just paid back this week, £620. And you can't get a pothole fixed. I know. It's disgusting. And I don't like to rant about that because we need more than an hour.
I don't know.
We'll talk about something that we can enjoy, and that's the football before we get too much taxed in that as well.
Exactly. But no, as you say, let's get on to football. We've had 4 minutes of me ranting about public transport, and as you say, you ranting about getting shafted by a Labour government. So, Labour government is normally for the people, but we know what people the Labour government are for, and it's not the indigenous population. Let's get that one out the road as well. Right, okay, football. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start?
I think we go to
Champions League.
A good couple of nights this week, which was the Champions League. I don't know how much you've seen of it. I know you have difficulty with seeing the full games. We've been on night shift regularly, whereas I have the luxury of having them all there, but it's finding time to get them all in. The one that actually really was looking forward to was the Aston Villa on the Tuesday night to see if they could come back against PSG. As I've said all along, Aston Villa in their own league, the Premiership, have done exceptionally well. And as I've said a couple of times, they've punched above their weight. Maybe I'm wrong to say that. But, you know, you look at their position in the Premier League and they're still able to get to the level they were at. They're 7th in the Premier League and they were able to take on PSG. And I'll tell you what, it was an exciting game. They didn't have the lion's share of the play. But I'll tell you what, they gave PSG a right shake-up. They really did.
Yeah.
And McGinn's goal was absolutely outstanding. They kept knocking the ball forward, and I thought, is his next touch going to take it too far away from him? They never got close to him. And what a strike it was, you know. And it just shows you where John McGinn has come from, to the fact of everybody questioned when he went down south, would he be able to cut it down there? Whoa, he certainly has. The boys.
He's Villa captain.
Yeah. World class.
You know, so Aston Villa captain, a side that got the quarterfinals of the Champions League. He's a good player for Scotland as well, you know. So yeah, John McGinn's quality. But Aston Villa going forward, I mean, that was a game the other night between two really good attacking sides. Yes. PSG have different class going forward, struggle to defend. Aston Villa much the same. Going forward, you know, we like Morgan Rogers, as you say, John McGinn.
You've got to look at Rashford
just now. Yeah, I mean, Rashford's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, but you know, I've always believed, and I've said this all along, Rashford is still a world-class player or he was with a club that had managers that can't manage, and that's the bottom line. You're there to manage players. They've already got it easy. The bulk of these managers come into these top-flight jobs. They don't have to tell people how to, or show them how to take a throw-in or a by kick or a goalkeeper how to kick the ball over the halfway line. That's all done. These players have got an education and a technical background that far exceeds your normal human being. So these managers are coming in, and what they've really got to do, and I know it's a hard shift, is to manage them. Now, when you look at the potential of some of the players that have left Man United, or you're not getting the best out of them, I'm just using them as an example. It's absolutely a shame that the public, don't see the best of them because they are not managed to the requirements to get the best out of them, because there's people in the job don't know how to do it. And they always look for injuries or excuses, and I think, no, man management skills is what a lot of these managers need, and a lot of them don't have it. All they would like is a big deep pocket so they can pull out £100 million player. The player's already been in a position where he's seen it, done it. Oh, the job's easy for them. Go and get somebody that's been in there and has to work their socks off to get the best out of players, like the Bournemouth guy and people like that. These are real managers. No, the guys that are sitting at the top of the tree, bringing them in and then maybe even trying to look at next season like the Manchester United man just now. I just don't. I've said that all along. He should be getting more out of the players than what he's actually doing. And for Rashford to go to Aston Villa, I think was atrocious for Manchester United supporters to see him going there to Aston Villa and performing the way he is now. Boy's world class, and I don't care what anybody says. Yes, he's dipped and his head's been elsewhere, but that's up to the club at that particular time and the management to get the best out of him. And they certainly haven't done it, but Aston Villa's doing it. And, you know, they ran them close last night. And I just look at Aston Villa and say, well, you can hold your head up high. And it's just a pity you get PSG, because to me, they're my tip for winning this. And, you know, we've seen them playing other teams and they've just blown them away. So, yeah, good on you, Aston Villa. I was really delighted. And their league form has been excellent. You just look at the last half dozen games. They've lost one, and the last 4 matches have won. So they're really on a roll. And the manager's actually got to take a lot of credit for this.
He's done an exceptional job.
Emery's magnificent. He really is. I know at Arsenal, I thought, oh, is he the right guy? But I'll tell you what, he's proven he's worth at Aston Villa. Absolutely unbelievable. For me, I would give him, I think, without looking into it in too much depth, probably the English manager of the year. If you look at where they're actually sitting at this moment in time.
I'll be honest, I think it's going to go to Eddie Howe.
It probably
You know,
will.
I think Eddie Howe's due it in terms of, obviously he's won Newcastle their first trophies, took them into the top 3 last night.
Yeah.
And again, comparisons with Aston Villa, you're looking at two sides that are absolutely outstanding going forward.
Yeah.
You know, in the shape of Isak, Newcastle United have an outstanding striker, you know, and they've got a few guys. They've also, however, got a few players that can defend. Fabian Schär going forward and at the back is an outstanding player. You know, they've got several quality players in it in Newcastle, and he's starting to mould them into a team.
Yeah.
You know, so I think when you look at that Premier League next season, Liverpool, as you said before we came on here, they've managed to secure Van Dijk to 2 years. They did it last week with Mo Salah as well. Liverpool in terms of going forward next year.
What we'll do is when
we'll come to that.
We'll come to that, and we'll then can be looking maybe in another week or so to be looking at the people that's really up there challenging hard and for that manager of the year, because I tell you what, it's been very, very good. Just looking at the other fixture, Borussia Dortmund beating Barcelona 3-1 again. Another comeback that was looking on the cards, and I'll tell you what,
they look quality too.
For the money. Each of those games, the Aston Villa and the PSG and the Borussia Dortmund and Barcelona, for me, it just ran out of time. That's what it was. I mean, I think there was still half an hour to go in the Borussia Dortmund game or the Villa game. One of the two of them, I think, still had half an hour to go. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you've got a chance of getting this. But it never happened. But again,
Dortmund with 2 goals disallowed as well, which were very close offsides.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and that was all that they needed. So they did really, really well running Barcelona close, as you say. And again, another side who looked a shadow of themselves. So the first tie, Dortmund looked completely outclassed in the first game in Barca. But playing in front of that yellow wall on Tuesday night, you know, they were just a different class. They looked good going forward. Barcelona at times looked so shaky at the back. I think Barcelona have got a problem. They don't have a decent goalkeeper between the sticks as well. And centre-half pairing at times looks a bit shaky. They make up for that going forward. And how many sides in that Champions League do that, you know, which I know you say you fancy PSG, purely and simply based on the fact that they're the only side who can defend with any consistency. Although again, last night they looked kind of dodgy. Is Inter Milan, you know, and that's why they're my tips. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
The Real Madrid game and Arsenal was another treat as well, because you look at Real Madrid and you say to yourself, you're expecting them. I mean, we chatted briefly about it last week on the front of can they turn it around, but the gap was so big, and it really was a matter of if Arsenal get the first goal, the tie was done, and it could have been done when Saka actually went up and tried to beat the goalkeeper. You know, later on, I was pleased for the wee guy, and I'll tell you why. Because he's a really, really good player. At least he's got the bottle to step up and take it, whether it's the right way to do it or not. And secondly, he came through a really hard time of racial abuse when he played with England and missed a penalty as well, which was disgusting. And he was only a kid. So for him to stand up there in that arena and didn't actually try and have the cheek to chip the goalkeeper was unbelievable. But when he went up, I went, oh, this is a bad move. I don't like the idea of that. I was waiting for somebody maybe with a big heavy boot that could just rip the net out and the tie's done. Because at that point, there was no way back for them. Instead of that, it gave them a lease of life, and the goalkeeper saved Saka's penalty, and it then went back and forward. But it was inevitable. Arsenal just needed another goal, and Saka was the man to get that goal, and it was a great wee dink over the goalkeeper. And then they finished off with an extra one, which gave them 5-1. And Real Madrid, shadow of the team. I think Ancelotti knew that'll maybe be his last Champions League. I can't see him still being there next year. I think a few seasons now they'll maybe try to get rid of him. But at the same time, Real Madrid, which when you look at it, that's failure to them. Failure.
Going out in the quarterfinals is appalling as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, incredible. But if you see that stadium, it's absolutely massive. I wonder what it's like up that top tier. There must be like midgets down in the park. So But I really thoroughly enjoyed that game. I only watched the highlights of Inter Milan and Bayern Munich, and again, it seemed to be better than it was the week before. But Inter Milan and Bayern Munich gave them a run for their money. Again, another fight back was on the cards. But Inter Milan, strong enough and managed to pull through. And that was a game I felt if it had gone a bit longer, Bayern might have got something more out of the game because there's a few near misses near the end. So
good finish for the first one for Harry Kane. Took it nice and early. I think caught everybody surprised, put them one in front, and then Lautaro Martinez. And then you'd Lautaro Martinez for Milan, basically getting one back, pulling back the equaliser, then they go 2-1 up, and then Bayern are chasing things. And again, as you say, 20 minutes to go, it looked as if they're in with a shout of maybe pulling something from that game. But Milan just, that last 4 or 5 minutes where it was constant attack after attack, Milan just did enough and only just. And as I say, that's why I think they're my tips. Just they can defend, I mean, don't get me wrong. Their defending last night looked a wee bit harem-scarum and they were chasing shadows and whatever else, but they just did enough to stop Bayern getting that goal that would have levelled the tie on aggregate, So you look at the semi-finals coming up, 4 fantastic sides there, and all with slightly different styles of play. You've got PSG who are a wee bit cavalier-like going forward. I suppose Arsenal's the closest to that, but up until these 2 ties, you're sitting there going, Arsenal can't really score, but they've managed to find 5 goals against them, against Real Madrid. Milan can defend.
When you look at Arsenal's goal scoring, it has been better since Havertz has been injured. Trossard's been left out, and Sterling doesn't come into the frame. Now, I've said this all along. You're not going to win anything with those 3 players playing. And it's proven the case where it's a midfielder that's breaking forward and playing as a number 9 now. And he's actually doing the job. If no setting players up, he's up there finishing. So you look at it and you say to yourself, it is the case that the 3 forwards, although Arsenal are still sitting there in second spot against Liverpool in the Premiership, could that maybe have been the difference? That the 3 up front were missing too many chances? When obviously regulars Trossard and Sterling were not, but Havertz was. And if you look at it, and we have it in our own Scottish Premiership, the misses seem to be forgotten in relation to what they can affect the outcome of the league. And I've rattled my gums about this with Rangers for I don't know how long, but and I've said it with Arsenal as well, that the 3 up front that I've just mentioned have not been contributing to the Arsenal to get to this position they're in now. So, their finishing's been brilliant, and long may that continue, to be perfectly honest. I think Barcelona and Inter Milan, I honestly haven't seen them as much as I would normally watch Barcelona or even Inter Milan. So I don't. You're saying Inter Milan's the strongest looking at the two of the two in Barcelona and Inter. Cammy,
I just like the way they defend. I like the way they defend. But Barcelona are a quality side. There's no getting away from that. I mean, Lamine Yamal, outstanding. What a player, to think he's only 18 or 19-year-old. What an outstanding player he is. And Rafinha going forward looks quality. But there's something about that Italian style of play. Inter Milan can really defend. And again, they've got goal scorers up their end. Lautaro Martinez, that's the first time an Inter Milan player has scored in 5 consecutive Champions League games. So he knows where the back of the net is as well, So, no, there's just something about it, And obviously the 2 ties, Arsenal against PSG, as you say, Barcelona against Inter Milan, the 2 semi-finals that we have to look forward to at the end of the month. What a couple of cracking games, 2 cracking games in prospect. Arsenal, PSG, that could end up 10 each in aggregate. It really could. Both sides attack so wholeheartedly. As I say, both quite cavalier. But as I say, there's just something about Inter Milan that I quite fancy them to get to the semis. Quite fancy them to get through the semis to the final.
Well, I think
I just think they're stronger.
Yeah, I think though when I look at it, the two teams I'd like to have kept separate would have been Arsenal and PSG, because I think we had a better shout against Barcelona or Inter. It is what it is. I would have even liked Arsenal and PSG as being the final, and it could work out that it's entertaining enough that it might be better than the final.
Yeah.
Because that's what you sometimes find. The final is a wee bit of a damp squib. And the run up to it, which we've had a glut of recently, has been outstanding. The quality is amazing, Cammy. It is absolutely outstanding, some of the play. I sit in awe of it, and I look at it. I don't know if people... I've played the game a little bit, not very good, right? But I know how difficult it is to play at the level I was at without people being up the terrace. And do they really understand how difficult it is to control and pass the ball the way these guys do? Their first touch is amazing, absolutely amazing. And their vision, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And really, it's a great spectacle. And if you can't appreciate what we've had in the last month, say at least the last month of the Champions League, you'll never appreciate football.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you know, Dennis.
3 kicks last week with Declan Rice, world class. You know, absolutely amazing. So
I mean, you know, obviously over the last few seasons, I've kind of not so much fallen out of love with the game, but you know, I haven't enjoyed watching football. You know, for me, it's not been exciting. It's not been good. The Champions League was getting boring. You know, it was the same sides all the time, and to a degree, it still is. It always will be. But there's just something about this season's Champions League, and to be fair, this season's Europa League as well. You know, that I've enjoyed getting up in the morning, watching the highlights for the night before. You know, a few times I've been late to get to the gym just purely and simply because I've been sitting watching the games on on YouTube from the night before and looking for a few extended highlights of games and things like that. So yeah, it's the only way I can really watch the game just now. Obviously that'll change. I should be able to hopefully catch both semi-finals in their entirety. Because obviously I'm going to be off. I'm not going to be at work. I'm going to be off my work for a few weeks. Which is why next week there's not going to be a podcast. There will be no Friday Night Football Pitch next week for anybody who's interested, as anybody's watching, just purely and simply because I'm not going to be around to host it, and Dennis has got problems next week potentially as well, you know, so no podcast next week. But no, this season's Champions League, Europa League has definitely got me enjoying watching the game again in the morning for short periods of time, granted, you know, but it's been good. It's been great to watch it, you know, and as you say, some of the skill, the ability.
You should let people know that it's your knee you're getting operated on. It's not that razor blade to take that beard off. That's going to
no, it's not that. No, it's definitely that. That's not quite. That would be a construction site for that one.
The thing I miss, if anything, in the Champions League, and you have to move on, is Messi and Ronaldo, because always I would choose the game that they're playing in to be watching. We still have individual talent, and it's been absolutely outstanding. But these two players were a different breed, and I do miss watching them on a regular basis in the Champions League. But as I say, you move on from it, and we've still had entertaining football, you know. So just looking at when the fixtures are for the next game, the semi-finals is Tuesday the 29th. Arsenal have got PSG, 8 o'clock kickoff. And then on the Wednesday, the 30th of April, Barcelona have Inter Milan. So that's certainly in my diary. I'll be looking at them. The thing we must move on to, because we never really gave it much airtime last week, is the Europa League. We're a wee bit ahead of the game because normally we'd be talking about it on the Friday night. And that's still to come tonight, which I'm really looking forward to. Bilbao will have Rangers at 8 o'clock. Frankfurt will get Tottenham. And you have Lazio against Bodo and Man United against Lyonnaise. All 8 o'clock kickoffs. I'll tell you what, a lot of good football in among that. But again, Cammy, I've got to say that there is a gulf between the Champions League
100%,
in quality. And yet, when you look at Tottenham and Man United, with the money that they've spent, maybe a couple of the other foreign teams, it shouldn't be, you know. But I wouldn't say it's substandard, but when you watch Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you hit the matches on the Thursday, I then go, oh, that's dipped. It's back to this
Yeah.
touch and control and vision and technique. And I see the flaws in that, and I go, yeah, you can see how there's scales of football where it goes down and down and down. And, you know, the Europa League has been good. Maybe they should put that on the Tuesday so that if it's no great, we're then looking forward to the Wednesday, Thursday.
The Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, that's it.
That's against you really get good games Tuesday, Wednesday, and then there's a wee bit of disappointment on the Thursday.
On the Thursday,
maybe tonight Rangers could do something magical. I can't see it though, because I thought Bilbao were shocking last week. I really did. For them to be tipped potentially as winners would make me think, well, that league is not so much devalued as it's very poor. So Rangers deserve what they got out of the game. Absolutely. No question whatsoever. And they're going over there to Basque Country and they'll have a go at them. And there's no reason other than the fact if Bilbao come out the traps as they should have done last week, then Rangers could have a really tough time of it. I can't see Rangers, when you look at obviously the fixtures at the weekend, getting beat again, and you say to yourself, when is that ever going to end? You just can't turn up in Europe, because one of the seasons you'll not be in Europe. You keep playing like this.
If they keep playing like that, that's it, exactly. They're just substandard domestically, you know. I mean, that's the big problem, you know, that Rangers just cannot cut it domestically. As you say, they're losing to Hibs, drawn with Aberdeen, you know, they just... There's something sadly lacking, obviously, at Ibrox, other than the fact that they've got a decent manager. You know, there is definitely something sadly lacking at Ibrox. Hopefully, if they get this takeover sorted, they'll get the finances sorted out and get something there. But when you're looking at a club like Rangers, who are pulling in 50,000 fans every week at Ibrox, and they're financially in shit street, you know, there's something sadly wrong in Scottish football, that's for sure.
You've got to question what's happening to the money. I know I've rattled on this season about what Desser's salary is 27k a week, right?
Yeah.
You've got to question, when you don't have money, why you've made that signing in the first place.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a safety net, you shouldn't be running your business like that. And the people who have allowed it have got to question their sanity and who actually suggests it. I mean, you just look at what the end product is for your 27k a week. I would be gone berserk. And I think half of them in the boardroom who have their own businesses that will be successful would never make any of these kind of movements in the business front if it was their own money. It's not their own money. It's a guy that's busting a gut week in and week out, digging holes in trenches, doing whatever they're doing and paying good money to go and watch it. That's the money that they're frittering away. It's not their own.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what makes me quite angry about the way that Rangers have been run. It's who's been making decisions and allowing it at board level. But, you know, you just go back to it. You know, they got out of jail last week. It was 6 minutes into injury time before Rangers ended up with a draw. Because I remember coming off the golf course and somebody was saying to me, Rangers, that's 90 minutes up and Rangers will get beaten 2-1. And I'm like, surely not. So, you know, really... I mean, we'll go into the Premier League in a minute, but just going back to the Europa League, do you think they'll get anything out of that game tonight, Cammy?
Do you know something? Let's be fair. Rangers away from home in Europe are a different proposition to what they are at Ibrox. You know, they get the result in Turkey in the last round. You know, each game Rangers they seem to have a game designed to play away from home. They're the same domestically. Obviously, they've lost four domestic games in the bounce now at Ibrox, you know, and then throw in a European game, that makes it the 5. So they do seem to have a game which can get results away from home. Bilbao they're sitting 4th in the Spanish league just now. You know, they're a decent side, certainly, you know, and they're going to be playing Champions League football next season. I think Athletic Bilbao are favourites purely and simply for the fact that the final is going to be contested there. I don't think for any other reason are they favourites in that tournament. I would still have Manchester United, or before last week, Lazio finishing and beating Bilbao, you know, and potentially going on to win that tournament Leon as well, and I know obviously Leon and Manchester United play each other. For me, each of these sides I've mentioned are a better proposition than Bilbao. Can Rangers get a result? Purely and simply, yeah, I think they can. I think they can go to Bilbao, get a draw, take it to extra time, and possibly clinch it on penalties. So there you go. There's my tip. Rangers on penalties tonight.
Well, as much as I think, and I've criticised Rangers' performances all year, I think because of the performance of Bilbao last week, which I thought was atrocious, I think Rangers should be confident, even although their players are not good enough to be winning the Scottish Premier League. I think can be good enough to go to Spain and say, stuff you lot, you struggled against us at Ibrox, now we're going to go and get ourselves into the semi-final of Europa League, which would be astonishing. Absolutely amazing.
It would be fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic,
And I'd be delighted because they have, week in and week out, it doesn't matter who you are, you're a human being. The supporters are suffering, the players are suffering, because these results are not expected with a club the size of Rangers in the domestic league. And therefore, I think that they deserve something like this. But, there's no sentiment in football, and I keep saying that. Nobody deserves anything in football. But if you're going to have a soft touch, then I would like to see Rangers going through tonight on the back of the tough season they've had. And, at least try and maybe something further out of it. The other games, Frankfurt against Tottenham Hotspur, that's sitting balanced at one each. They're in Germany, Tottenham, and I tell you what, this is the last throw of the dice for Postecoglou, because if he doesn't win this, they'll be hunting him out the door before I think the season even finishes. And we said something about it last week, but I do believe that it's of his own doing. We're back to the fact of what I was saying about players being managed. I think he's got to manage himself in relation to what players can do and what players can't do, and on the style of the game. He's got to adapt as well to players, and that's not what's happened. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but you can't look down the line when you look at the size of these clubs and say you shouldn't have somebody to fill in. You always should have somebody to fill in. So
injuries.
I think they have got a good chance, though. But I'll tell you what, the German setup with Frankfurt won't be easy for them going over there. I would say that
would not go Frankfurt all day long for me with that one.
You're taking Frankfurt on that, Cammy?
I'm taking Frankfurt on that all day long on that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to just have a bit of sentiment in that and say Tottenham might sneak through by the odd goal, even if it goes to penalties.
Manchester United against Lyon.
Yeah.
It's at Old Trafford. They're one each for the first game.
Two each.
I fancy United. Two each they drew the first game, two each. Yeah. I fancy United to just have enough, for Lyon.
I think they'll have more than enough. I honestly do. I think this is a good night for Man United. And I also think, just looking at Lazio, I think they can overturn that 2-0 deficit as well. I just got.
You would expect that in Italy. Yeah. You would expect that in Rome, that they're going to have enough, to win. But again, the Norwegian side have been the surprise package, as much as Rangers have been a surprise package. For the Norwegians to get to the quarterfinals and be 90 minutes away from a semi, 2-0 up going into that semi-final. You've got to say they're in with a shout.
They're
definitely in with a shout. They're the only winners for the first legs.
Days of old, you never imagine going away with a 2-goal lead and losing it. For some unknown reason, we seem to teams, unless you're about 4-0 up, you're not safe.
Yeah,
it's really strange that. Looked at games last night and Tuesday as well, and you're thinking, nah, these ties are done. They're anything but.
Done. Yeah. And everything went. Definitely.
Yeah.
And 3 of these ties finished draws in the first leg, so it could be close. It could be close. Anyway, domestic football, moving away from Europe.
Before we do that, what's your 4? What's your 4 that's going to be in the semi-final?
Frankfurt, Rangers. I'm going to say the Norwegians are going to have enough to just hold out to Lazio and Manchester United.
Right. Well, I'm going to say Rangers.
Yeah.
Tottenham, Lazio, and Man United.
I wouldn't put a bet in it,
but that's what I'm thinking. could be the outcome. No. So we're a little bit different on that, Cammy. We'll see what happens in the outcome.
But we both fancy the Scottish side, which is maybe a bit of a surprise.
Well, that's our
we
heart.
Both fancy Rangers to have enough.
No, that's our
possibly. That's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm wondering.
That's what I'm wondering. Listen, Cammy, if they turn up the way they do against Ross County, Dundee, and teams like that, they'll get absolutely annihilated tonight. Yeah. So it's a smoke screen, really. We're putting a gloss in it because we don't want to be hard against them. I'm trying to be diplomatic rather than having a rant about how bad they are and the amount of chances that Des are still missing.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me last week when I was playing golf, said, that's 4 hours you went around here without mentioning how bad Dessers is. I went, right enough.
Yeah, there you go. Just as well the game was on now you were playing. But never mind.
That's probably why. I know. But anyway.
Okay. Domestically, we'll run through very quickly because I say, obviously, I've got an appointment at 7:15 tonight, which is why we're going to rattle through.
Sure.
That I have a meeting with that construction worker who is going to do the beard, Dennis, at 7:15. So,
all right, that's fine.
There we are. That's the Easter trim.
All right. Well, what we want to do, Premier League of results.
There's
one we've got to touch on. That was just last night, and I always found that strange. I didn't think that there was games of that level were allowed to play when the Champions League was on.
No, they can. Yeah, the Newcastle game. What an outstanding result for them.
5-0. Unbelievable.
4 at half time.
I know. Incredible. I mean, they're sitting now in 59 points in third place in the Premiership. Amazing. They had a wee slump for a wee while, but I'll tell you what, the last 5 games have won them. Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Absolutely brilliant.
And won a trophy as well.
That's right. Monday night gave us Bournemouth against Fulham. Bournemouth going really well, sitting in the 8th spot. Beat Fulham 1-0. And the Sunday matches, Chelsea and Ipswich drew 2 each. Liverpool beat West Ham 2-1. I think Liverpool deserved that. I watched that match. West Ham are sitting, I think, 4th bottom. They've got a cushion there.
They're safe. They've got the cushion.
No, but at the same time, I think what West Ham will be looking at is this season to finish as soon as it can and get new players in.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have that cutting edge or, what would you say, quality that's needed to compete against top teams at this moment in time. And Liverpool being top team, just wore them out. That's how I looked at it. Just wore them out. Wolves again, brilliant result, 4-2 against Tottenham. I mean, that's a right bad result for Tottenham, especially when Wolves were looking, as we said last week, probably up to 2 months ago, were looking as if they could take a drop.
Oh, certainties.
Yeah. And then 9 goals since Sunday to Wednesday. 9 goals Newcastle have scored. They beat Man United 4-1 on Sunday. Incredible. Absolutely flying. And I think that cup success actually worked wonders for them. Big goals again. Man City 5, Crystal Palace 2. So they've taken a couple of doings in the space of just a week.
10 goals in 2 games.
10 goals. Where have they gone to? If we look at their position in the league, they're sitting in 12th spot, quite healthy. You wouldn't have expected them to be losing 10 goals in that period of time. Brighton and Hove Albion are 2 each against Leicester. Notts Forest going down 1-0 to Everton. Again, not Everton grinding it out, looking good. Mm-hmm. Southampton been beaten 3-0 at home by Aston Villa. And Arsenal drawn with Brentford 1 each. No bad results, honestly. You look at some of the teams that are actually battling away there. Looking at the fixtures for Saturday, I nearly said tomorrow. Brentford are playing Brighton, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Everton, Man City, West Ham, Southampton. That's a tester for West Ham because I'll tell you what, Southampton have gone, right? But they will still be fighting for a bit of pride to try and get points because
that'll be the first time they've done that all season then because it's absolutely shocking. Yeah. They have been dreadful this season.
They have played 32 games and they've got 10 points.
Yeah.
So West Ham must be worried about that, Ty, because you don't want to be the team that's sitting in 4th bottom, although you won't go down. But the thing is, it would show you up in a light that your team is not very good. The other tie, and it'll be really interesting, this one, it's 5:30 in the evening. Aston Villa against Newcastle United. Wow. I think that to me is certainly the tie of the Saturday matches.
Yeah.
Sunday's Fulham, Chelsea, Ipswich, Arsenal, Man United, Wolves. That's another one. And Leicester City against Liverpool. I think that's a foregone conclusion. But Monday night's another interesting one. Tottenham playing Notts Forest. Tuesday is Man City against Aston Villa, another top one. And then Crystal Palace on the Wednesday, they are playing Arsenal away. And then that's back to next weekend. So there's a lot of
few games.
Yeah, interesting. Good ones. Yeah. Good matches to be coming up on the back of what we've just had a feast of Champions League football.
Yeah. Obviously, bank holiday weekend this weekend down South England, make the most of the bank holiday, with the additional fixtures and things like that, So something we don't really do up here because we tend really only to have the one day. We really just have the Monday bank holiday. The Friday's obviously only for those of us who maybe work for different companies, but it tends not to be a holiday across the board up here on the Friday.
It's an English bank holiday.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's look at last week's Premier League. Saturday gave us Kilmarnock going down 5-1 at Parkhead to Celtic. I've got to say, and I raised it right at the start of the season, Celtic played Kilmarnock, and I think it was 4-0 or 4-1 or something like that. Celtic blew them away.
First game of the season, yeah.
Yeah, first game of the season. And I had a rant about Derek McInnes having a go at Celtic or not having a go at Celtic and just having two walls try to defend against Celtic. And it's never going to work. And I think that always shortchanges the supporter and also is like looking for self-preservation. Well, it's a custard pie in 2 games in because I didn't see any different approach at Parkhead. Now, it may well be said, well, it wasn't a case of that's the way we approached it. It was the only way we could play because for that first 20 minutes, Celtic were unstoppable, Cammy. Absolutely unbelievable. The pace of the game that they played that at and the finishes was unreal. And I thought, when I said last week that without spending money and keeping the likes of Kyogo and people like that, you would be looking at the 8, 9, 10 goals maybe, right? Taking players out.
That was the one thing we mentioned,
Yeah, and I said taking it out weakens it. Now, I think if Kyogo had been there, hypothetical though, Celtic would have been up in 8 or 9 because they just didn't have that extra body that would take half chances or burn Kilmarnock out totally. And it ended up 5-1. But after 20-odd minutes, it's 4-0. And I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute. That proves the point almost. Why don't you go for the jugular? 5-1 is an embarrassment. But if you want to be the top team in that league, you want to expose everybody for the deficiencies because you have got the most spending power. You've got the strongest team. Let your supporters enjoy it. And I know you don't want to see teams getting devalued because we talk about that in ladies football. There's teams go away and they get beat 10-0 and all the rest of it. But this is development in ladies football. We don't have that in the men's game. It's developed. But if you can't get your players right and be, what you say, approaching the game properly, there's 2 things. 1, financially you're really strapped and you can't get there. Or 2, you've not got the capabilities on the part. But Celtic could have run out. I actually get bored with the last half hour of the game because I thought this is going nowhere now. The game was well done. But the Kilmarnock, I don't know. I thought really
I get bored with Kilmarnock, I'll be honest with you. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Derek McInnes as a manager is starting to be found out, He got found out in his last 2 or 3 seasons up at Aberdeen and he held on to him. I think it's the same at Kilmarnock. I think football's, sometimes we say managers are due a break. I think football's due a break for Derek McInnes, to be honest with you. I think he's at a point in time where he really has run out of ideas, as a manager, I think our game needs exciting. It needs exciting young managers, young managers who are interested. And every time you see Derek McInnes after a game, it's monosyllabic. It doesn't look interested. It is what it is almost, you know. And I think as a manager of any side in the top flight, or as a manager of any side like that, the minute you are giving off that impression after a game, I think you're done, you know. And personally, I think Kilmarnock need to move on because all he's done is take Kilmarnock backwards over the last season and a half.
They need to move on in quite a lot of areas. And the first one, without having a go at the manager, is that pitch. That pitch is disgraceful. And I would hate to be managing Kilmarnock and coming up against teams like Celtic or any aggressive teams, because it is shocking, and football should not be played in it at top flight level.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move to the manager, and he's got attributes. He's working his socks off week in and week out. Sometimes it doesn't work for you. And on this occasion, you're right. It's not worked for him at Kilmarnock. And it's certainly at the latter stages of Aberdeen, it didn't work. But then you sort of will think sometimes, is his mind somewhere else, like Ibrox? Because the chips were down, he was in every TV programme.
Yeah.
When the manager was ready to go out the door, and I'm thinking, are you pushing for this Ibrox job? Because you've got to be up for the job. You're not doing it with Kilmarnock, so I don't think that would be a good move. But you better believe it. If Ferguson doesn't get the job, his hat and name will be in the ring for this, because he won't last at Kilmarnock, I don't think, much longer, because they need, as you've just said, fresh blood in there at the top. And I think Kilmarnock would be expecting a bit more than sitting in, they're in the split now, but they're third in the split. And you look at St Johnstone, 29 points, Kilmarnock 35. You can easily catch them.
Catch them, yeah, it's catchable.
And I don't think personally Kilmarnock play enough attractive football for me to see that they deserve to stay in the Premier League. But there's other teams that are just as poor.
You might be right. It might be the pitch. You know, a lot of it might come for that. You know, I think you look at the pitch down at Kilmarnock. Dens Park's different. You know, it's a dump as well in terms of a pitch for a different reason. You know, and as much as the drainage up there appears to be worse than what you've got in the back garden, you know, at times, it just is terrible.
I think they fixed that though, Cammy. I think it was fixed this year. It was last year when it was horrendous, you know.
It's looked, St Johnstone. St Johnston's part this year looked.
That's it.
You know, that looked worse than a paddy field. You know, I was expecting to go rice on that. You know, I thought they were maybe moving in a few people there to get a few rice fields in St Johnston's Park. You know, it looked that bad.
No, St Johnston's pitch should be outlawed.
Horrendous.
That's no fit for purpose. I mean, Dundee certainly got it right. Dundee always throughout my years, used to be one of the best pitches in Scotland. And 2 years ago, when we had heavy rain that was absolutely destroyed, they must have had blockages on the soil underneath it, and it stopped the water getting away. So they addressed that, and Dundee is good again. Motherwell was another place a few seasons ago, and they sorted that out as well. But I think there should be a standard that the pitch should be in prime condition. St Johnston's pitch is really poor. Yeah.
I mean, you're always going to get, if you get a heavy downpour, there is going to be a couple of pitches suffer for it, but not to the same level as consistency as what they're having up there, you know. So,
well, anyway, Aberdeen drawing with Rangers on Sunday. Great result for Aberdeen, I suppose, but they were expected to win it, especially when you're 95 minutes into the game. Hibs, great result against Dundee. Absolutely flying. 4-0, they beat Dundee. That was the Sunday matches. Saturday, Celtic, Kilmarnock 5-1, as I mentioned. Dundee United going strong, 1-0 against St Johnstone. Motherwell and Hearts, 0-0. And St Mirren.
Thank Christ it wasn't in a telly.
And I think...
Thank Christ it wasn't in a telly.
well, having said that...
That's what I was saying last Friday, you know, but...
I can get both of these games, and I watched the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes jumping back and forward. And I actually thought they should have been in the television, because there was excitement there, because it was relating to the split that we talked about last week.
No.
And even if it was in terrestrial television and it was in BBC Scotland or Alba or something, I still think that the value that people would have got and an enjoyment watching the 3 teams battling it out to see who was going to get into the split.
Yeah.
And I just felt that it's come and gone. But because I watched, I thought, oh, this was great. And then you see the celebrations after the game. You see the disappointments. You're seeing that. You're not seeing it, but hearing it on the radio.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So, yeah.
Fair play to St. Mirren.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. I mean, he's done a great job. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great job. You know, I mean, if you were looking at promoting from within, I would give him the Rangers job because he can work with nothing. If you can get the boy Lasagna to score goals for you, he's a miracle worker.
Aye.
You know what I mean? And I say to myself, well, if you want to satisfy the supporters by going out there and getting a big name, that doesn't buy you success. And Rangers can't buy success because they don't have the money. So they should really look at somebody like Stephen Robertson and be in a position where
who can work with can work with very little. Yeah.
Give him a go. Give him a go. You know, other people go, oh, you're having a laugh. Oh, that's no chance. Okay, fair enough. But Rangers don't at this moment.
Something's going to happen. Yeah. Right. Somebody's going to try something different, you know. Anyway, not to worry. So very quickly, just finish off with the fixtures for this weekend, Dennis, and then I'll go and see the construction worker.
Okay, right. What we've got tomorrow, and you'd say at one point, Saturday, is the bottom six: Hearts Dundee, Kilmarnock Ross County, Motherwell, St Johnstone. Then the top six is Dundee United against Celtic, Aberdeen Hibs, and Saturday, St Mirren against Rangers. Now, I find that very strange, Cammy, that it's Saturday. They're playing tonight, and they're playing away. So, who in our league is allowing that? Not unless it's been changed.
I thought they had to play the Sunday.
Aye. So, what's right about this?
Yeah.
It jumped out of me right away. They had to play the Sunday. Yeah. Not unless there is something, but certainly saying Saturday 28. Sorry, no, my mistake. I'll apologise now. Do you know why? And here's where
it's Saturday the 28th, you're saying?
No, yeah, that's why. Do you know why? Because this weekend, Scottish Cup weekend.
Aye.
That's my
again this week.
Yeah. That was me jumping down the neck of somebody who's got it right with them playing next Saturday.
Well done, fair play.
Well, fair play, I've noticed it. Somebody going, he's lost the plot. So we'll get the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup on Saturday. Hearts have got Aberdeen, and Sunday, St Johnstone have got Celtic. I think that'll be a right good couple of ties, even though St Johnstone, you got to look at them. They beat Celtic not that long ago. And Hearts will be trying to get into that final, considering that they've missed the cut-off. So really good ties, without a doubt. Who do you think will win what's your tip for the final, Cammy? And that's this weekend.
Celtic Hearts.
Yeah, I think Hearts have got a lot to be playing for. Maybe, well, so have Aberdeen, but I just feel that Hearts have their names written on getting to the final.
Celtic Hearts. Yeah, definitely are. You know, but that's what it is. But anyway, that's us done for tonight. As I say, thank you very much as always to Dennis for joining me, keeping me right, keeping the guys who do the fixtures. Oh, hang on, no, something along the lines, but keeping them right. But as I say, it's been a really, really good week this week, the Champions League stuff. Next week, we don't have any European football next week at all. As I say, domestically, we're almost done. So for various reasons, I say there is no football show next week. The Friday night football pitch will not be on next week. As I say, I'll be lying, recuperating in a hospital bed somewhere. Dennis, we don't know what he's doing, but he'll find out during the week. But there will be no podcast next week. We will be taking a week's break. So it's our mid-season break. We're having it in April. Scottish football has it in January, but hey, it is what it is. So thanks very much to you, as always, Dennis. Thanks very much to folk for listening. We are done for the evening. Just remember, get yourself along to a game.